看国际辩论社第17集的播出。巴勒斯坦激进组织哈马斯大规模的突袭以色列，在以色列多个地区犯下屠杀的恶行，残忍的杀害平民百姓，无数的老弱妇孺遇害，震惊世界，令人痛心。哈马斯武装分子挨家挨户的破坏，甚至处决无辜的平民，这是以色列史上巴勒斯坦武装分子犯下死伤最惨重的一次攻击。以色列誓言采取报复行动。我们稍后有独家的深度专访以色列驻台代表，而这一切的残暴恶行就开始于7号，巴勒斯坦的激进组织哈马斯向以色列发射了数千枚的火箭弹。那么同时，他们锁定的就是在加萨还有以色列边界的这一场音乐季，参加的民众沦为攻击的目标。哈马斯这回把矛头都对准了平民，攻击医院、救护车，大肆的绑架人质，其中包含年幼的孩子、女性还有长者，就是要借此威胁以色列。
入夜后，以色列国境仍不停传出爆炸声。警报响起，民众仓皇逃跑。巴勒斯坦武装组织哈马斯7日对以色列发动突袭攻击，不止机场与军用设施遭到针对，救护车遭投弹，医院也被炸烂，还有民众在路上遇到武装分子开枪扫射。
Hundreds have been killed and more than 1,000 injured.
有民众在家中遭到挟持，亲属被杀，一家子缩在角落，全被吓坏。南方地区更传出有越来越多妇女遭到俘虏，一车车被送进加萨。有以色列母亲描述孩子在被抓走前的最后通话，情绪崩溃。
They heard the door break. They said someone was breaking the door, someone was breaking the door. I can't even imagine what they felt.
Earlier this morning, they were visited in kibbutz near Oz. In my mother-in-law, they were taken by Hamas.
更有男子悲伤表示，妻女原本回加萨边境探望家人，却一去不返。自己在网络上看到影片，才发现妻女遭到俘虏。以色列境内陆海空遭到武装分子包抄，至少22处爆发激战，被质疑情报单位失责，而兵临城下之际，官方誓言反击，摧毁加萨。三立新闻林汉报道。
当然，以色列也没有坐以待毙，随即展开了报复空袭，确认了哈马斯突袭行动的指挥官辛瓦在空袭当中身亡。但是，另外一名哈马斯领袖，这有9命怪猫之称的戴夫，他却还活着，他也成为了以色列现在猎捕的对象。Let's talk 观点好谈。The Israel war against Hamas terror organization continues to escalate. On October 7th, Hamas militants carried out an unprecedented multi-front attack on Israel at daybreak, firing thousands of rockets as dozens of Hamas fighters infiltrated the heavily fortified border in several locations by air, land, and sea, and catching the country off guard on a major holiday. In response, Israel immediately retaliated with 2 airstrikes. This marks the most serious conflict and now in war in nearly 50 years. Now today we have a special guest with us. It's Israel's representative to Taiwan, Maya Yarin, to provide us insights into the impact of this war. Welcome, Maya. It's such a great honor to have you with us on the show.
Thank you for having me here. Thank you.
So first of all, I'd like to express my deepest condolences. These are the most darkest and the saddest days in Israel, and we do pray for the war to end as soon as possible. Now, as we just mentioned, you mentioned before to me that it's not the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, which most international media has been referring to. It is the Israel war against Hamas terror organization that the Israel government is trying to clarify. Can you let us know more about why this clarification is so important?
Yes. I've also noticed that you referred to the Hamas as militants or as fighters, and I would like to take the terminology of terrorists.
Yes.
The reason why we're referring to this not as another round of or conflict between Israel and Palestinians is because we have a very direct distinction between Palestinian civilians, the Palestinian Authority who governs the West Bank, and the Palestinian Hamas terrorist organization who rules Gaza since 2007. This is a terrorist organization that has on its charter the declaration to annihilate the state of Israel and to fight all Jews around the world. This is a terror organization that is ruling the Gaza Palestinians without any care for their well-beings, putting their money into ammunition, weapons, and attacking Israel instead of taking care of the civilization and taking care of their water, energy, food, medication, education, everything that a normal government would have done. This is an organization that is targeting civilians, and this is exactly what we saw on Saturday morning.
Yes, indeed. It is a terrorist attack that is targeting, sadly, to the civilians, not the military base, but all like the civilians, the families, the elders, the infants. It's just brutal. And I would like to know if any of your family and friends are safe right now.
So fortunately, for me, my family is safe. And unfortunately, we hear too many sad stories from friends who were directly affected. I think that there is no house or family in Israel that has not been affected or knows someone who got kidnapped, who is now in Gaza, who was murdered. We have more than 1,200 civilians who were murdered or who has been wounded, and we have now more than 7,000 people wounded. Some of them, hundreds of them, are still in critical condition. So this has been affecting many people. I have a friend who was released after 2.5 days of being hostage by Hamas. I have friends who were killed. The business partner of my husband, she has a family member, 22 years old, who died at the music party. Oh, so we know this from all around.
Yeah, as you mentioned, the Hamas has kidnapped so many Israeli hostages currently. And is the Israel government working any on the rescue?
So there are more than 150 innocent civilians who are now being kidnapped and held in Gaza Strip. I'm talking babies, toddlers, young women, teenagers, elderly, ill people, disabled people on wheelchair. They took everyone. The way that they took them, they were putting babies in cages, dog cages, to take a lot of them. They were raping young women while they were forcing them to go to Gaza. Hamas is acting like ISIS. And we know all of this because Hamas was live streaming and taking videos, laughing while they were doing that. This is how we know the information. I want to refer to Thomas and mention his daughter Emily, who was 8 years old on Saturday. He was just telling the press yesterday how happy he was when he discovered that his child was murdered. He was happy as a father that she got killed because he knew the alternative of being kidnapped and hostage by Hamas in Gaza would be much horrible.
This is so heartbreaking.
This is such a serious crime of keeping the hostages. And what we're doing now is we need to make sure that Hamas understand that keeping these hostages is a liability. It is not an asset. They need to receive pressure from the Palestinian population so they will release all hostages. There should be an international cry to call for the release of everybody. This is a war crime.
As you mentioned about the Gaza Strip and how they can just kidnap all these men, women, infants, elders to the Gaza Strip, we'd like to let the Chinese audience have a better understanding of the Middle East and where the location is, the Gaza Strip. So on this screen, we'll be showing the Middle East. So this is the Middle East location, and we can see that there is Lebanon, Syria, and also Jordan, and there is Israel, Egypt. And right there, Israel, we can see Jerusalem. And that yellow area, as we go closer, now we look at the Gaza Strip area, we can see that the population of Taipei and the Gaza Strip is actually the estimation is quite close. Yeah. So the Taiwanese audience can have a better idea of so this part would be Israel and then to the Gaza Strip. It's really close by. It's just.
Yes, I would like to mention one more point, and that is Gaza Strip is also having a border with Egypt.
Oh, yes.
Which means that every time that there is an international discussion about a blockade of Gaza, there should be remembered that there is another opening, Rafah border pass to Egypt. And there is a lot of control and a lot of goods that can come across from Egypt to Gaza. And there is a choice of another country about this and an involvement of Egypt about the situation.
And what is their choice?
Well, for a long time, the Rafah opening has been open. Actually, the same as the two other border crossings that Israel and Gaza were having. Only a week ago, if you were going to all these three border crossings, you would have seen them open with many trucks, foods, supplies, people crossing. It was an open and active border crossing between the two countries and Gaza Strip. This all ended when Hamas was deliberately attacking the two border passing with Israel. They were coming across with bulldozers that were provided to them as part of their rehabilitation efforts following the previous rounds. So instead of taking good use of that bulldozers and other materials, they were using them to attack Israel. Now following that, both border passes to Israel are completely ruined. They killed all soldiers that were there, and there is no way to cross. Now the crossing to Rafah, to Egypt, is also closed because of the current war.
Well, as you mentioned, as the Hamas infiltrated into Israel, we see that they blockade the West Bank. And what is there any like hidden threat in the future that like nearby countries or even geopolitically or even like the world should be aware of?
Okay. So as the war started on Saturday and we realized, and it took us some time to realize the situation on the ground, Israel immediately reinforced its forces all around Israel, through the West Bank, through the area surrounding Gaza Strip, to the northern border with Lebanon and Syria. We are now going through recruitments of 360,000 Israeli people to our military. They're going now into preparation, intensive training for this war. We're having many, many volunteers who are guarding the villages and the civilian cities. We're taking under consideration that taking the chaos that was happening on Saturday, we had Hamas terrorists who entered Israel, and we're looking and continue to look for them. It took few days to find some of them, but this is something that is ongoing. So we will make sure that there will not be a threat and that the security comes back to all the territory of Israel.
I see. Well, as we know that the Hamas, this attack caught Israel off guard. So I'm sure that everyone would be questioning this question about, is there an issue going on with the Israel's intelligence gathering system?
This attack was an unexpected one. Yes, we will be the first one to say that there was no previous warning for this, and we were caught off guard about it. It was not only us and our intelligence. Actually, it was also all the international organizations and the UN agencies working on the ground inside Gaza. None of them, even a week before the attack, were ever indicating that there is something coming close. On the contrary, during the last 2 years, there's been an enormous effort to improve the economic situation of the civilian population in Gaza. And the different countries and UN organizations were working hard in coordination with Israel to bring much more support to the civilian population. We were so certain that there is a positive trend on that we only recently started to talk about long-term projects like Gas for Gaza and Gaza Marine, and all of this ended. So yes, there are many lessons that we need to learn. There will be, of course, as usually in Israel, an inquiry committee. We will have many things that we will need to improve and change. And it's not only our security. I think the lessons that we will learn will be valid for many other countries around the world. But now it's not the time. We have not yet even buried our own dead people. You know, it takes a long time to bury 1,200 people, civilians who got murdered. This is the time now to fight. It's the time for war. We have to protect ourselves. And after that, we will make sure that we learned the lessons for the future.
Yes. Well, speaking of the lesson, we also can see that it appears that Israel's Iron Dome defense system seems to not be inadequate of the handling large-scale attack. So, is there any strengthening of the forces in the future?
Okay. So let me disagree with you about Iron Dome. Iron Dome has been proven in the past as a very successful, with a very high percentage of success in its targeting. It's a very smart, advanced system that is calculating the trajectory of the rockets. The ones that are aiming towards open spaces or towards the sea are not being targeted. Only those who are coming into civilian population or to infrastructure that is critical. What we saw, we had on the first day more than 3,000 rockets coming towards Israel, and still very, very few civilians got harmed by that in the territory of Israel. We now have, during the last week, more than 5,500 rockets, and still we see that there are not many civilians harmed. So this is part of the Israeli innovation and our strength. We see the Iron Dome as still a very much successful, and we will continue to use it. And this is, of course, coming on top of what we're having in almost every house in every neighborhood and city in Israel, and that is shelters. We have protected areas so civilians can use them when there is a rocket attack.
I see. Well, as Israel has initiated retaliation, like a total blockade of the Gaza area. Now, the target is Hamas, that's for sure, but there is also civilians in Gaza. How can they be protected?
So Hamas is the target.
Yeah.
The Palestinian civilization is not. And I want to assure you that Israel cares more about the Palestinian population than Hamas ever did. Hamas uses Palestinian population as human shield. They put their military next to school, next to hospital, inside mosques. They're using, sometimes even holding the Palestinian people close to them physically, that they will not go as they use them when they're doing militant activities. I can tell you about humanitarian law during war and what needs to be done and how Israel is doing that, but I won't. I can tell you about how we monitor the situation of gas, of water, of food, of medication inside Gaza Strip to make sure that this is not coming to humanitarian crisis, but I won't tell that. I can tell you how we are getting the information about international shelters and public shelters to protect civilian people, Palestinians there, and how we avoid targeting them, but I won't tell you all that. And I will not tell you how we are giving prior notice to Palestinian people so they can leave their houses in time and move inside a city so they will not be harmed in our firing. But I won't do that. I won't do that because this is not the story. The Israeli citizens that were murdered on Saturday morning got zero notice. Zero. They were butchered inside their houses, some of them inside their beds. Zero notice. And this is the story. It's a story against terrorism. And Israel is on the forefront of that, but we're not the only one. This should be for all democracies, for all liberal countries, for everybody who cares about human rights. This should be something that they should be outrageous at and stand beside Israel in this fight.
Indeed. Now, you mentioned about how this is actually something that we should raise awareness of everyone in this globe. Taiwan shares a similar situation because we also have a neighbor that it's pretty unfriendly toward us. Is there any message that you'd like to convey to the Taiwanese audience?
There are many similarities between Israel and Taiwan, and in better days, I would talk a lot about our culture and our economy and a lot of things, but there are also at this point many, many differences. What Israel is fighting is terror organization that calls for its annihilation. They are calling for our destruction. They do not recognize our right to exist. They are calling for the killing of all Jews around the world. This is true for Hamas. This is true for Hezbollah. This is true for Syria, Lebanon, and Iran. This is a very unique situation. It's not that if Israelis will lay off their guards, we will be saved. On the contrary, we just saw what happened. So there are many differences, but what I can say is that at the end, our strength is our people, the Israeli people. And yes, we are in pain. And yes, we are shocked. But out of this, there is a lot of strength, and we already see that. The strength is within the people. Thousands of hundreds of them are coming back to Israel from all around the world, taking flights in order to come and join this war against terror. We're seeing that in the spirit of volunteerism in Israel all across. People open their houses for families who have been attacked to come and be their guests. People are going to the hospitals to be with the wounded people, sending toys, sending food, arranging, donating things. This is a volunteerism that is amazing to see. And this is our strength, the unity, the resilience, and I think this is something that everybody can watch and learn from how we are doing that.
Definitely, the resilience is very impressive of the Israeli people. And also, speaking of alliance, what's your point of view regarding now the United States has dispatched this carrier group to support Israel? Do you think, this heightened presence will be intensifying the geopolitical situation?
The U.S. is sending a clear message of support to Israel. President Biden, yesterday's speech has been a very strong message that Israel is an ally. And I think everybody around the world, whoever they are, should get this very, very important two messages. One is that the U.S. is committed to its allies. For Israel, the U.S. is the major and most important strategic ally. But I think that this is the time, again, for all of our democracies to really strengthen our partnership and stand behind each other. The second one, there was a clear message by the U.S. to its enemies that they should not get involved and take an advantage of this opportunity if they see it as such. And this is a very clear deteriorating message for organizations in Lebanon and Iran to not be involved. And I hope that they will listen to it, because if they will not, there will be a very heavy price that they will pay.
Yes. Now, last but not least, we know that now you're facing such a terrorist attack, this large-scale terrorist attack. Is there any message that you'd like to convey to the public?
I think that the world should be outrageous on Hamas. I think that what we have seen on the news and in the videos, again, released by Hamas, as they were laughing and enjoying this, is something that should touch every human being around the world. This is unacceptable. There is no justification for any of this. And I think that it's not only Israel that needs support. This can reach anybody at any time. And this is, I think, the first lesson that we're doing. We need to be united on this and have a clear support for Israeli action now, and to be prepared that this will never happen again.
Thank you so much, Maya. Thank you for joining us. We all pray for peace, and we hope the national trauma of Israel can be quickly recovered.
Thank you very much.
以色列的反击行动包含不间断的空袭以及全面围困加萨走廊。虽然针对的是哈马斯，但确实摧毁了许多平民的房屋，还有学校，断水断电，更让加萨地区的民众生活陷入了极度的窘迫处境。他们就连想要出门去采买食物，都要担心空袭，也让加萨的巴勒斯坦民众陷入了人道的危机。
一边朝爆炸位置喷水灭火，一边在兵荒马乱中从瓦砾堆拉出活人，但耳边的爆炸声响却没停过。天亮时，还有海上渔船被火箭袭击炸毁，冒出浓浓黑烟。哈马斯袭击以色列后，遭到对方报复，一手掌握的加萨走廊轮番被空袭。
I got married this year. What did I do? What have we done? You destroyed an entire neighborhood, while Gaza's hospitals are overwhelmed with the wounded. including infants.
联合国表示，以色列大规模攻击加萨走廊以来，当地已有超过187500人流离失所。加上以色列军队全面围困加萨，情势几天内迅速升级，境内粮食、电力统统中断。其实加萨走廊是传统的中东火药库。2005年以色列撤出加萨后，依旧控制边境、海岸和领空，但紧接着哈马斯夺得加萨走廊控制权，双方冲突不断。
The Strip's population of 1.8 million people are trapped in the crossfire.
同时，加萨也是全球人口最稠密的地区，每平方公里大约挤了5500人。然而，超过一半居民都无法取得足够粮食，生活在贫困线以下。而以色列仗着掌握主流话语权，多年来故意冷处理加萨。甚至连 Netflix 历史剧情片重现1948年以色列并吞巴勒斯坦土地的史实，描绘无数难民被迫搬家，竟也被以色列官方要求下架。但真实状况如今在战火下展露无遗。世人同情以色列之际，也不禁思考巴勒斯坦难民是否同样无辜。三新闻姚怀珍报道。
而这一波冲突为第6次以巴战争揭开序幕。不过，双方对立背后其实累积了是横跨100年的恩怨。从犹太人的复国运动到巴勒斯坦人的大灾难，还有哈马斯的出现，中间几度缔结和平的尝试无疾而终。双方如果不设法化解政治还有历史宗教的对立，未来只会有更多以色列还有巴勒斯坦的平民受到牵连。美国观测站现在加入我们的是美国之音白宫记者黄耀义，耀义好。
晨曦你好。
耀义，首先要请教你啊，现在这以巴的冲突再度的在扩大，那是不是代表说美国他们原本企图在中东推动像以色列还有跟这个阿拉伯国家关系的正常化，这是不是已经破灭了？
对，所以呢，我们知道说白宫这个方面，我们看他的做法就知道呢，他其实是希望说还是这个正常化的进程是能够继续的。为什么我这样说呢？因为我们看到从白宫国务院出来的这样文字都不是用到所谓的以巴冲突这个字，而是以哈冲突，也就是呢，他要把巴勒斯坦还有哈马斯是分开来的。首先我们看到呢，这个星期六发生攻击了之后呢，不管是拜登总统的讲话，或者是后来星期六晚上。白宫的国安会进行一个给记者的背景简报会，都一再的第一时间强调哈马斯是一个恐怖组织。那么这个布林肯呢，我们知道拜登总统也说呢，他的这个政府有跟巴勒斯坦的官员通话，那指的就是布林肯国务卿跟巴勒斯坦的这个民族权力机构的官员的阿巴斯有通过电话，也就是说，现在拜登政府就是希望把这个哈马斯跟这个巴勒斯坦分开来。为什么呢？因为我们知道，其实就在今年呢，已经延宕10年之后，其实这个以色列还有这个巴勒斯坦的领导人呢，其实是有2度坐下来，一次在约旦，一次在埃及，都是美国居中协调的。所以这个以巴和谈呢，其实是美国现在拜登政府一直在推进的，所以他不希望现在会受到这个因为哈马斯的袭击而受到影响。那我们刚刚也提到，就是包括像这个福特号已经是前往这个当地的援助了。拜登总统也说了，包括艾森豪号现在也会来出发，甚至有需要更多的军事援助的美国也都会来提供。那我们知道航母的现身在当地呢，除了是警告当地的人不要来其他的国家不要轻举妄动，其实也是在告诉以色列说，你如果要反击的话呢，其实不需要做太过火，因为我们美国已经来帮助你了。那我们也看到了美国的白宫国安顾问苏利文也在敦促以色列说，你今天在做反击的时候要来符合法治跟战争法。为什么就有这些举动呢？就是在这个背景简报会上，白宫国安会的官员就说，现在当务之急其实就是要把战火局限在加沙地带，不要让它扩散开来。所以拜登总统的警告呢，也包括给黎巴嫩。为什么黎巴嫩有真主党？现在就是怕真主党呢会在以色列的北部另开战场来攻击以色列。所以现在就希望说，这么多的一个举动，不管是外交或军事呢，就是要把它的局限在加沙地区。那当然。伊朗所扮演的角色受到关注，就是他到底是不是一个幕后黑手？对此呢，这个美国之音我们专访了白宫国安会的战略沟通协调官约翰·科比，我们看一下科比怎么说。
Make no mistake, Iran has a degree of complicity here. They've been supporting Hamas for many years, training, tools, weapons, capabilities. So nobody's walking away from the fact that Hamas wouldn't be able to function if it wasn't for the support that they get from Iran. What we have said, and our Israeli counterparts have said as well, is we just haven't seen any direct evidence that they were involved specifically in these attacks. But we're going to keep looking at this. We'll keep monitoring the intelligence picture and the evidence, and we'll see where it takes us.
所以我们看到呢，这个伊朗也在这个攻击了之后呢，也是呼吁阿拉伯国家要来这个支持这个哈马斯。不过我们看到美国国务卿布林肯现在正在中东之行啊，包括已经访问了以色列，接下来前往约旦、卡达、沙烏地阿拉伯、阿联还有埃及等。那么他们就美国希望说，不要让他们这样来呼吁阿拉伯国家团结起来对抗以色列，而是希望说能够与阿拉伯国家的接触当中呢，希望继续把这个和谈的进程能够推动下去，而且不要让战事扩大。另外，布林肯的一个重要任务也是希望能够开辟人道走廊，让加沙地区的这个平民百姓能够逃出来。晨曦。
好，那么刚刚耀一有特别提到说，现在美国是已经派遣了福特号的航母来协助以色列。那中国这个时候会不会趁着欧美在俄乌战还有以巴战分身乏术的时候出手，甚至威胁台湾呢？
所以我们知道，在拜登总统一上任之后，就有公布他的一个印太战略，以及一个全新的针对中国的这个战略这个白皮书啊。所以说，在这一次我们专访白宫国安会的战略沟通协调官约翰科比的时候，他也特别强调说，美国不会因为在这个中东地区或其他地区有所这个冲突要来协助而来分心，美国还是会来维持在印太地区的安全承诺。我们看一下科比是怎么说的。
We remain committed to a strong, robust military presence in the Indo-Pacific, and we're going to keep that. Any nation who might think that somehow the United States is going to get distracted should think again. We are a large enough, big enough, powerful enough country, economically viable enough. In fact, the economy is incredibly strong right now, that we can look after our national security interests and those of our allies and partners anywhere around the world.
是的，所以我们看到他其实还警告我们在印太地区最大的一个挑战就是来自中国，也警告说，如果你要轻举妄动的话，其实你要三思而后行。那么就在我们看到以色列跟这个哈马斯冲突如火如荼之际呢，其实我真的要讲一下，就是美国没有忽略到印太地区这一块，因为其实就在10月12号星期四，新加坡的这个副总理兼财政部长黄循财才来到白宫，而且跟白宫国安顾问苏利文会见之后呢，还谈了就是两国人在东协还有印太地区的伙伴合作，还有拜登政府的印太经济框架，并且要在经济、科技跟国防加强合作。此外，我们也知道中国外长王毅也是预定10月的时候要来到美国，那么在这个 APEC 的峰会期间，有可能会因此有拜习会。那白宫方面呢，对于我们有询问白宫说这样子的一个进程，还表示说日期更近一点会来公布。所以目前看起来呢，白宫这边是对于印太地区还是非常的重视，但是现在呢，会有一个问题卡在什么地方？也就是我们看到新闻已经报道说呢，现在白宫这个预算办公室想要来提出一个法案，其实也是配合美国众议院外交委员会主席 McCall 的一个想法，也就是说呢，把这个台湾、以色列、乌克兰还有美国南方边境所需要的经费跟援助包裹在一起来做一个新的立法。但这里遇到一个什么问题？就是现在美国国会没有议长。然后共和党内部现在又瞧不定，我们知道呢，他前几天才在说一个内部会议，说这个 Scalise 这个众议员，他们共和党内部推举出来要来当议长，结果他自己昨天才刚退出，说那我不要选了。所以现在议长是悬缺的情况之下呢，任何法案都很难推行甚至通过。所以呢，白宫国安会的一个资深官员在简报会上也跟记者坦诚他说我们是很想要来帮以色列，或者是有这些其他的周遭的安全的承诺，但是在没有国会议长的情况之下，的确他说这是一个很独特的情况。晨曦。
好，没错。现在呢，即便美国已经声明了他们就是会来帮助以色列，但是现在这样一个议长悬缺的部分呢，还是有待观察后续的力道会如何。那我们今天真的非常谢谢美国之音白宫记者黄耀毅带给我们从这白宫的第一手消息，谢谢耀毅。感谢您收看今天的国际辩论社，我是刘晨曦，我们下周再会。